mode.
Great morning, sales teams, and welcome to YOSM. My name's Emma Monroe, and I'm the creator of your online sales manager. You're stuck with me today, teams, and Noop's off on some training so that he can bring you some even more powerful information. So I will be honing my skills and hosting the interview with our speaker today. But first of all, we have our scorecard check. So I want you all to get out your Excel spreadsheets and make sure you spend just 10 minutes today looking at your numbers to know what actual action you need to do to convert those numbers over for the week. It's Thursday morning. You've still got time to do some amazing stuff this week, but more importantly, looking at the numbers today will help you to look at next week and plan your action for next week. Now, I expect all of you to send back your plan on Sunday so that you can be held accountable. And yeah, I'm looking for some good results from you all before Christmas. Now, today we're speaking to a very special guest speaker called Jan Watman, who is in the finance game, and she'll be talking about how to best position ourselves for finance. Now, being in sales, we're not necessarily great at administration, so I thought it would be quite interesting to hear from Jan today to know what exactly we need to do in our finances to best be able to present ourselves to the banks. Also being in sales, we tend to be on commission, which means our incomes tend to fluctuate. They go up and down a little bit, even though with this awesome training you won't go up and down as much, you'll go up, up, up. But the fact of life is that business goes up and down, and so our incomes go up and down as well. So that makes it a little bit tricky for the banks. So yeah, I want to ask Jan some great questions about that today. Now I'll just unmute Jan. Good morning, Jan.
Good morning, Jan. Good morning, Emma.
How are you this morning?
I'm fine, thank you, and thank you for the opportunity to talk this morning.
Pleasure, pleasure. Jan, do you mind kicking this off by telling us a little bit about your background?
I've had over 20 years experience in 3 of the major 5 banks, starting as a teller, working through a graduate program, consumer lending, business lending, private banking, and then most recently with Suncorp managing the financial planning. So I've had a bit of experience with the financial planning as well. So a wide variety of clients I've dealt with over my time.
I can imagine. I can imagine. And what's the framework of your business now?
Right now it's AAA Finance and Insurance, and we focus on equipment and motor vehicle finance. So when I say motor vehicle, that includes the cars, bikes, boats, campers, trailers, trucks and equipment and all the toys people buy. So it's really the leasing side of it. So it's lending that is not secured by your residential property or any residential property. It's secured by the actual equipment or on an unsecured basis just for personal loans.
Okay, excellent. Do you do mortgages as well, or that's more from your past experience?
That's more from my past experience, so I definitely know what's required, and it's easy for me to identify opportunities to refer to other people.
Okay, excellent, excellent. And why do people come to you for finance, Jan?
Well, I suppose there's 2 groups of people. If we start on just the ordinary individual, people will come because they have insufficient savings, or they want to keep their savings separate so they've actually got some cash if they need it at a later date. Or alternatively, it could be for tax-effective reasons. So they might have gone and seen their accountant or financial planner and they've suggested they borrow to grow their asset position.
Okay.
If we look at a business, it is usually for a tax-effective reason. After businesses usually work very closely with their accountants or financial planners, and they'll explain to them the effective use of their cash flow. So sometimes it's not effective to actually outlay a large amount of money to purchase an item. It's better for them from a cash flow point of view and a tax point of view to actually borrow to purchase the item and either own it outright, or then at the end of the term of the finance they then buy a new piece of equipment.
Okay, very good. And being with salespeople, you know, we service salespeople with YOSM, they're sort of in that middle land where sometimes they're employees but they've got the commission aspect of their package as well. So some of our sales teams are commission only, so they're classed as contractors, which kind of puts them in a funny space, doesn't it, where they're they are running their own little business, but they have the perks of being an employee as well. Would that be correct?
Absolutely, and I think people like that, it's important to be talking to your professionals, so the financial planners and the tax people, because they're the ones who can tell you the most effective way to borrow, whether to borrow, and also the information that's required.
Yes.
For a contractor, often, as you mentioned earlier, there's fluctuations in income and everything, and sometimes there's additional information that's required for those people.
Yes, absolutely. Do you find salespeople are good at structuring and administration, or not so much? I know what my experience with salespeople has been.
I would say not so much, and I'll use myself as an example. I didn't do my tax returns for a number of years, and then when you actually do require finance, you find that the banks don't really consider, oh, well, you've been busy and you just put your personal things aside and focused on other people. You actually have to have all your information up to date. So I would say a salesperson, often they know what to do, but not necessarily the best in managing their own finances or their own paperwork.
Yes.
And they're used to having people, often they're used to having people doing it for them as well.
Yes, that's right. So can you share with us some tips on how you got yourself out of that situation, and what, I suppose, systems you've had to implement or you would suggest to implement to make sure that their financial details are up to date?
I went and saw my accountant, and I had a good relationship with him, and I think one of the things that he always thought that I was on top of everything, so just left it with me, and really what I needed him to do was make me accountable to actually deliver in a time frame all the necessary paperwork that he needed.
Yes.
It's a lot easier if you keep your paperwork up to date as things happen. So, if you're receiving, your invoices and everything, contracting, or you've got dividends or something coming in, make sure that you either, use a spreadsheet or you use the MYOB to keep the information up to date, because the worst thing is you get into a situation where, you've got months and months of paperwork to input, and you actually start forgetting things, and you may forget to input some of the important things. So if you've got someone who can hold you accountable, BAS is a good thing, because you've got to do that on a regular basis.
Yes.
But I think just keep everything in one place, and make sure that you do your tax returns every single year.
Yes, exactly, exactly. So moving away from the actual, getting salespeople to do their finance inputting, if you like, what type of clients will need finance from you?
There's really everyone, and this goes from a young adult right through to grandparents and then businesses. So it can either be for their first car, their first home, and obviously I don't do the mortgages.
Yes.
It could be even just a personal loan for an overseas trip. It could be to start a business.
Yes.
And also, I suppose, with the line of business that I'm in, it's a lot of the toys that people buy. So, the campers, the jet skis and things like that, that people don't necessarily want to use their cash they've got, or they may not have sufficient, whether they borrow 100% or just borrow a portion of it.
Yes.
So you've got the people, I suppose, for personal assets, and then you've also got people who borrow for investment. So this is the gearing which enables them to borrow and increase their wealth, whether that's for property, for shares, or for managed funds.
Yes.
And businesses, it could be for a piece of equipment, or it could be to purchase a premises so they're no longer paying rent.
Okay, very good. So it's all a very broad spectrum.
Absolutely. Everyone, I think if you spoke to anyone, say who's in their 50s at one stage in their life, would have borrowed for some reason.
Yes. So if I was to come to you as a salesperson, and most salespeople have a retainer plus a commission, so as I said before, their income does go up and down, what sort of data is needed to present your clients to the bank?
Okay. First, I would say whether you're talking to the bank or to a broker or any salesperson, and you agree with this, being salespeople yourself, is be honest and be very thorough. So really, for a bank, they only know what you tell them, so you need to paint the full picture. So, if you've had time off or if you've had a special contract or something, you need to talk to them about them and not just assume that when you hand over paperwork they understand what's there.
Yes.
So for a self-employed, a contractor, they'll usually want a couple of invoices, and depending upon the regularity of your income, they'll want a few invoices and at least the last 3 months' bank statements.
Yes.
And this is for myself, but for banks, they probably also want tax returns, and this will allow them to normalise any fluctuations over a couple of years.
Yes.
And the other thing is assets and liabilities. So, some people can be cash rich, as in, they've got their income coming in, and other people can be asset rich and not necessarily a strong income.
Yes.
So that's where I sort of say paint a full picture of your financial situation. So they'll ask you about your assets and liabilities. Before you go to any meeting with a bank, make sure you've got all the information with you, even if you take too much. Take everything. Think about everything that you've got. One of the questions when I ask my clients is, what's your furniture and everything insured for, or your household items? And a lot of them sort of sit there and they say, oh, I don't really know. And you'd be surprised at the amount of furniture, linen, and kitchen things that you have that actually add up.
Yes.
And lenders actually use that as part of your assets. So even though you say, I don't own a house, I don't own this or anything, you've still got a lot of other assets that you've purchased over the years. So I think that's really important as a contractor.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So once you've presented the client's data to the bank, what happens if they get knocked back?
I suppose there's a number of reasons people can get knocked back from the bank. Banks can be really conservative in their view. They often also have an appetite for a specific type of business. So it may be that they've gone after, and I'll just use say agricultural for an example. They may have really focused and done a lot of marketing towards an agricultural area, and then they get sufficient number of clients on their books that it could become a risk to them. So then when they look at a client from 6 months down the track and they look at a new client in the same field where they've been marketing to, they may say, look, we need a lot stronger person, asset position or an income position. So you may have got finance approved 6 months ago, but now because the bank's position is different, they may not look at you. So that's one reason. May not necessarily be because of the individual. It could be because of the bank's appetite.
So it may not be personal.
No, not at all. That's right. And banks also have a specific serviceability index. So although you personally may think that you can service a loan, the bank has their own index, which gives a certain amount for standard living expenses for a single or a couple, and then whether you're renting or you own your home, they add a little bit more on if you're renting. And then if you've got children, the number of children, they add a specific amount on for each child.
Yes.
So I've had a number of clients who have sort of said to me, but I don't spend that much. But unfortunately, that's what the bank does look at serviceability.
Yes.
So that's another reason why some people may not get finance through the bank. The other one is a poor credit history. So this can either be from, being a bankrupt, a discharged bankrupt, or it could be from an unpaid loan. But it can get down to things also like utility accounts. If people move around, often they may not forward their mail and then not receive a electricity bill or a gas bill. Or people change phone companies and don't receive their last phone bill. Those sort of things, if the companies can't get in touch with you, will actually record a default on your credit file.
Yes.
So there are a lot of people who are unaware that they potentially have a poor credit file because there's something on there. So that's where people, and especially the banks, have difficulty in approving finance for those sort of people. And as my business being a broker, that's where we've got access to a large number of second-tier lenders which will look at clients in those positions, and we actually assist them getting back on track, so improving their credit file. So if they can show they've paid out a loan over the next couple of years, they may then be able to go back directly to their bank and get finance.
Yes. I'm assuming the higher the cash deposit, the easier it is to get finance for the rest?
In some circumstances, I would say for a mortgage it may be, but for other things it still comes down to the serviceability. So even if you've put a 50% cash deposit and it's a large item that you're purchasing and they don't see that you've got serviceability, they still won't approve it. So it really comes down to serviceability, especially if we're talking about a sales and contracting business.
Yes, yes. So if a sales contractor came to you and they've had, you know, a bit of a sketchy credit history, you're saying that there are second options other than going directly to the big banks.
Absolutely. And if someone said to me that, you know, they know that they've got something on their credit file or they've had a loan declined, I would, what we get is a privacy form signed, which allows us to actually do an inquiry, so not a credit inquiry, but just inquiry on the person's credit file. And then we can have a look and I can talk to the client about exactly what's on there. So I had a client the other day who was unaware that they had an AGL account that wasn't paid from
Right.
where they'd previously lived, and I sort of said to them, well, go and get it paid and then ask the AGL to actually record it as paid. So if you have a paid default on your credit file, it's looked in a lot more favourable circumstances than if it's an unpaid.
Yes.
So there's ways that we actually work with clients and educate clients. I mean, I've had other clients, I've said to them, look, you know, stop inquiring. That's the big thing. People they'll go to one bank, can't get finance, so they think, I'll go to the next bank, then they'll go to the next bank, and then they'll come to us and we'll say, you've got too much traffic, what we call as traffic on your credit file. There's too many inquiries and a lender won't look at it.
Yes.
So I'll tell them to, you know, if you can hold off for 6 months and then come back and talk to us.
Yes. So inquiries from you for a client doesn't count as traffic? Because I'm assuming you do shop around to the different lenders?
Absolutely. So we don't do a credit inquiry, we do a general inquiry, so it still does show up.
Yes.
But because I suppose of our experience and our connections with the different lenders, we don't actually put applications through directly to a lender until we have a fairly good idea that they're going to approve it. So we know some lenders will look at, you know, an unpaid phone bill in a positive way, or no, others will not even look at it and they'll straight away decline it. So we wouldn't even approach those lenders. So,
yes.
And we've also, the benefit, I suppose, of using a broker is that they've got relationships with the business development managers at the different lending companies.
Yes.
And we can actually pick up the phone and talk to them and sort of say, look, I've got this client, they've got this, you know, this is their situation, this is, you know, they're a contractor and this is their income, you know, would you consider it? So that's where we save the number of inquiries on a credit file.
Okay, very good, very good. I actually wasn't aware of that, so that's good to know. Are there any big don'ts when when presenting yourself to a bank?
Yes, don't try to hide anything.
Good tip.
It's one of the big things is people sort of think, oh, I just won't say that. That was a couple of years ago. They're not going to know. It's not with them. When I was working for the banks, one of the most frustrating things is when people wouldn't tell you the full story and then you'd see an inquiry on their file and it might have been a loan that had been approved but they didn't bother telling you about it because they mightn't be paying as a direct credit or a debit, they're just paying cash for it, so they think, oh, I'll give her my statements, they won't see the transaction. That is really hard to then get approved. And one of the things I'll say is each of the banks have different ways of processing loans. So some of them will have an automatic computer system where the lender will be sitting in front of you and they'll input into the system and they may be able to give you an answer on the spot. If it gets referred, it'll then go to credit, or you've got other lenders who are sitting in branches who have an authority up to a certain level that it can approve a loan based on certain criteria.
Yes.
Once it goes, a loan application goes to credit, we usually say these people are faceless, so they're sort of, you know, sitting in the head office and everything, and all they see is the paperwork you send through as the lender. So the lender, you know, the lender sitting in the bank is sending the paperwork through to credit. If they don't send everything through and a true picture of the client in the first scenario, and then the credit comes back and asks all these different questions and piecemeal we're handing information back, this credit start to question and they start to dig deeper. Yes. And look for more, I suppose, questions or reasons not to do it as well. So that's where I sort of say, be honest, think about before you go into a bank, and make sure that you've got all your information. You've got your, you know, pay slips, your invoices, your bank statements, tax returns, you know, super statements, anything like that that you've got. I mean, especially as a contractor, if you're contributing more to super,
yes,
make sure you tell the lender that as well, because banks often don't include your superannuation because that's mandatory, but if you're actually contributing more, that's money that you can stop contributing and could start contributing to a loan.
Absolutely.
So it's making sure you've got a good relationship, and don't be afraid to ask questions of the person that you're talking to, because the more questions you ask, the more you're going to know and the information that you should be telling them.
Yes, yes. So presenting a full picture is extremely important so that they don't ask more questions. I mean, that's, exactly like, so basically you're selling yourself to the bank.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yes. Yes, so, if in a normal sales process, you want to make sure you've got all the information and tools at hand for your client. So it's exactly the same thing, isn't it?
That's right.
Yeah.
The other thing I'd say, if you're looking at borrowing on a regular basis, that you might borrow for a house and you're going to borrow for your business or something, try to get into an area of the bank that is relationship managed.
Yes.
So what I mean by that is that you'll have a dedicated person that you can pick up the phone and talk to. What this does is they start to get to know you, and then they'll have your previous information there at hand, and they'll want to grow with you. Whereas if you're an unknown person to a bank and you walk in, I mean, you'll still get finance, but it's going to be more difficult to rebuild a rapport with someone. And so not all banks have this, but a lot of the banks will have, whether it's priority or premium banking or business banking, small business banking or private banking, and they really get to know their customers. And I think that's important. If you're a client who is intending, wanting to grow a business and sees that they will require finance in the future, it's a really good thing to try to get into one of those areas so that someone knows you and will be able to help you, and you can pick up the phone and have a conversation with them.
I would definitely agree with that, and there's sort of two schools of thoughts behind that, isn't there? Like, I have a file with a business banking manager, and each year I just send her all my information so that it's on hand and ready when I want finance. But on the other side of it, is it the best thing to have all of your loans with the one bank?
I don't necessarily see it as a bad thing, because even if you've got loans at another bank, they're still going to take into consideration the serviceability of those loans.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
If you've got assets that are securing, if you've got a house that's securing some of your loans, you have to be with the one bank. Banks don't necessarily these days like taking second mortgages.
No.
So, yeah, I mean, there are two schools, but
Yes.
I think if you can build a relationship and you're paying your loan on time, it is best to have them all with one bank.
Yes, yes. Very good. Well, yeah, that's good advice, because I have spoken to some mortgage brokers and finance brokers that advise not to have it all with one bank, but I'm a relationship person, and I'm assuming a lot of salespeople are relationship people, and it is good to, especially with our incomes going up and down, we need someone that really understands our industry. So yeah, it works for me, so it'd be interesting to hear from our participants what works for them.
I'd say that when I'm saying about loans, if you're looking at cars and bikes and boats and those sort of things that I do, sometimes the banks are very conservative.
Yes.
And that's where we can go directly to leasing companies to get finance. So I'd say if you're looking at a business loan or something like that, I would definitely, you work with a bank or, through a broker who will go with the bank. But sometimes with equipment and everything, definitely it may be better to go with a broker. I mean, I get referrals from banks all the time, from past relationships where I've worked, who they're unable to provide finance for their clients, and they refer their clients to me, and then I get finance for them. So I'm not trying to take away a relationship from them, I'm supporting their relationship.
Yes.
And the clients are really thankful for that. So, I'd sort of say, first port of call is probably your bank, but if they don't approve it, don't get disheartened or say, like, I can't get finance, and start shopping around online. Go and see a broker and see what they can do for you.
Absolutely. Have you ever had anyone, what's the worst case scenario of someone that just cannot get finance?
Probably, your bankrupt people who can't get finance, but
Yes.
discharged bankrupts after a certain period of time, we actually can get finance for them.
Yes.
I've recently done finance for someone, and it was just a personal loan. It was a personal loan secured against a motor vehicle that they did have, and it was at 29%. And that seems an astronomical
Yeah.
interest rate, but for the client, it's a way for them to actually build their credit history back up,
Yes.
and to get the finance.
Yes. That's amazing. That's yeah, I don't quite know what to say about that, Jan. Just it's fantastic that that's what you've been able to provide that for them, but to have to go through that process for them must be quite frustrating still.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's the same with people on Centrelink. People, certain Centrelink benefits, we can still assist them getting finance, because those sort of people still, they still need to buy cars and,
Yes.
and everything, and you can't necessarily save. You'd be saving for a long time to purchase a car. So there are lenders out there. I mean, it will be a slightly higher interest rate.
Yep.
But, definitely we can help the majority of the people. Absolutely.
Yes, yes. Oh, that's good to know. Now, I've known you for probably about 6 months now, Jan, and I must say I'm really impressed with your sales process and how you've built the business so quickly. Now, I hadn't asked this question beforehand, but do you mind sharing with us just a little bit about your sales process and what you've done to get started?
Okay. When I left the corporate, I had 6 months off, so life of leisure, which was really nice, and then started with AAA Finance, which is a business that my brother has established. And I started with a zero client base, which was interesting. So I obviously told everyone that I used to work with what I was doing now, so that can be, it was good, but it was the banks. So obviously all my past colleagues were trying to get their own sales targets through the banks, but
Yes.
gradually clients they can't assist, they are referring on, which is really good. The next thing I did is there was a home show or an agricultural expo, and I attended that. My brother was going with one of his car dealers, and I literally walked around the expo and just spoke to some of the exhibitors there, and in particular I focused on the campervan industry.
Yes.
If they said yes, my next comment was, well, do they get 100% of the deals approved for you? When they said no, I'd say, would you like to give me a go, and it also gives your clients choice. And that's where the business really started from. So since then, so it's only been operating nearly 6 months, but I've been doing this. I've been to 5 shows, so whether they're camper shows or boat shows, and just making sure that I maintain contact with these dealers. So my first contact was at the show. I then went and visited them at their premises, provided them with banners and flyers, but not being too out there because obviously it's their product that they're selling.
Yes.
And then just maintaining contact with them. A lot of them actually said to me that I was one of the only brokers that they've seen attend every show. And when I say I attend a show, I don't attend for days on end. I literally go there, I walk around and say hello to each of my dealers. I might drop in twice or just walk past so they see me a second time so they know I'm there, see how the business is going, and that's it.
Yes. Can you just share with us
really
those 2 questions again, because they're really powerful questions?
I asked whether they had a finance broker they were currently working with and whether they settled 100% of their clients' deals. And when they said no, I said, would you like to give myself an opportunity to see if I can assist there? And then the second one was also, would you like to give your clients choice?
Yes.
So if they said they just had one and yes, they're okay, it was, well, why don't you give your clients choice?
Which is just, they're really good qualifying questions, Jan. Okay.
Thank you.
Do they have a finance broker? And then qualify that even further by saying, do they get 100% through? So you're showing respect to them, but you're also showing that there may be a challenge there with just having one.
Exactly, that's right.
And then,
because a lot of people would ask the first question and then walk away because you sort of think, oh, they've already got a finance broker, and even the businesses that had we offer finance, in-house finance.
yes.
I still talk to those businesses as well because those businesses, I talk to them on the basis that the deals that you can't get approved, and especially say if it's Yamaha or Honda Finance, where do you send those to?
Yes.
Can I be your second tier lender? So you're not getting, often you're not getting fantastic clients, and sometimes they are, but you know, it's still a source of income.
Exactly, exactly. And then, you know, qualifying that even further by making that qualification question about the result for their clients by asking them, would you like to give your clients a second choice? That's just bam, that's fantastic.
That's right. And it was nothing, in all those conversations, it's not about me, it's about their clients and their business to increase their sales.
Yes, yes. Well, I take my hat off to you, Jen. You're asking really good quality questions and, you know, obviously building a really good, solid business. So thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure, and I hope everyone else has enjoyed it too. Did you have any last words of wisdom you wanted to impart, Jan?
I just thank you for the opportunity this morning. I would say just make sure that before you go to a bank that you get prepared, you paint a full picture and be 100% honest.
Yes, absolutely. Honesty is the best policy, and then you can sleep at night, hey?
That's correct.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much once again, Jan, and you know your details are up on the screen, so if anyone wants to have a chat to you, just mention you're a YOSM client and go and have a chat to Jan. I hope you wrote down those 3 questions that Jan asked, and you know, have a look at that of how that could work in your sales process. I'll put them up on the blog and in the newsletter tomorrow as well, so that you've got them, but it's best to write them down now. So those 3 questions were, do you have a finance broker? Do they get 100% of the finance through? And would you like to give your clients a second choice? Just brilliant. So thank you so much. Have a great rest of the week. Go smash it up and then have a fantastic weekend, and we will see you here bright and early on Monday morning.